Hi, I'm Dino Tripodis. How did Dr. Michael Abernethy determine that a prison inmate was faking being paralyzed in order to be shipped out of the prison and into a hospital? It was a ballsy move, and you'll find out tonight on Whiskey Business. We've all done this from time to time, right? You bump into somebody who you haven't seen in a while. Maybe you worked with them and you moved on to another job. And what do they say to you? Hey, let's get together and catch up. And that's what you do. You catch up. You agree to meet for lunch or drinks, and then you sit across from each other and listen to each other's mind-numbing updates about their lives. Her daughter's in gymnastics, and she looks like she's got a real talent for it. And your son is, for some reason, playing the cello. You have no idea why, but he seems to love it. And you go back and forth, and you catch up with the little pieces of minutia in your life. That's with like an acquaintance, or like I said, a former work associate. But when you come across an old friend, someone you've known since you were in high school, it's not so much a catch up as it is a reach back. Sure, you may spend 3 to 5 minutes on current history, where you're at, what you're doing, but then the bulk of that conversation goes back to those days that you remember growing up, because those are some of the fondest memories of your life when you reach back and remember. You might both be respected members of society now, but for some reason, you'll reach back and talk about the time that you had your drunken friend so drunk that he couldn't walk up his own steps. You put him in a wheelbarrow and rolled him up to the front steps of his house, rang the doorbell, and ran. Not that I'm condoning high school drinking. That's not my point. We've all done it, but you get what I'm trying to say. So tonight on Whiskey Business, sure, we'll catch up and we'll get some current history, but we're also going to reach back. Whiskey Business, the podcast not so much about whiskey as it is one with whiskey, and my guest tonight is a reach back. It's Mike Abernethy. I say Abernethy. Is it Abernethy or Abernethy? I'm discovering this for the first time tonight after 40 years of friendship.
It's actually Abernethy, but no one pronounces it that way. I mean, in my hometown, my dad was always Tom Abernethy.
He was Tom Abernethy,
right.
And I blame your father for not getting it right from when we were in high school. Your father was a respected and longtime broadcaster. You are Dr. Michael Abernethy, affectionately known to us. I should say that in the studio audience tonight is also his sister Jenny, and also he's been on the podcast before, but he was actually in the marching band in high school with Abs. We call you Abs. Abs has been Abs. Greg DeTore is sitting in the background tonight as well, and I'm sure at some point he'll either chime in with clarification or just won't be able to stand it and have to say something.
He's the one with the great memory, right?
He's the one.
That
is the one with the great memory for anything that happened from high school and college. But if I would have lunch with him, like say 2 days ago, he doesn't remember shit about what we talked about then. He can go back way back then, but not currently. But yes, I say Dr. Michael Abernethy is with us, and a doctor of what?
Emergency medicine.
Emergency medicine.
Yes.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, some of your cases have been documented on the TLC show, Untold Stories of the ER.
Bum, bum, bum.
I have to say it like this and look at the camera for the YouTube video. Let me try it again. In fact, you can see some of Dr. Abernethy's cases on Untold Stories of the ER. Yeah, that was when we were talking about you coming up to visit Columbus and get you on the podcast. You actually sent us one particular clip from the show about the prisoner. Yeah. So tell us more about how that actually went and happened.
Well, again, the Untold Stories of the ER, they're on TLC. I've done that. I've done a total of 4 episodes with them over the last 6 years now. I forget how I initially was contacted by the production company, but it's sort of become an annual thing, and really great people, and it's a lot of fun.
And they're reenactments.
They're reenactments.
They're not actually cameras there in the throes of it.
Oh,
because,
no. It's reenactments of
Because
stories.
it felt a little reenacting.
Yeah, maybe.
Like
Yes, I just said I don't take the acting seriously, but it's a lot of fun, and you do get some poetic license, and names are changed to protect the innocent. So some of the scenarios are changed a bit. So
in this particular episode that we saw, there was a prisoner, an inmate, who was claiming to all of a sudden have become paralyzed.
Well, this was it was an actual story. So the story was he fell in the shower, hit his head on the sink, and after that was
hit his head on the sink. I'm putting the air quotes up there for those just listening to the audio.
And after that couldn't move. So he's lying on the floor, can't move anything, basically below his shoulders. And so they're obviously concerned and take him to the local emergency department.
Where you happen to be working.
Right. And so in that case, I mean, things didn't fit. And plus, this guy was a badass. I mean, he wasn't just in there for traffic tickets. I forget his exact rap sheet and what he had done, but
He's a criminal.
Oh,
he's a real criminal.
He's a criminal, and they had a lot of security because when people are taken out of the prison environment, that's often, whether it's for doctor's appointments, they can arrange escapes. Whether they get the word out to their friends, hey, I'm going to be in the hospital at this time, I'm going to fake this. So they obviously
see it in the movies all the time.
Yeah. Well, that happens in real life.
I know. Well, that's why it's in the movies, because people get the idea.
But they ended up having a lot of security, which was very strange. We hadn't seen that much, and they were very nervous about this guy. And so the question was he paralyzed or not? And his exam was very convincing. We proceeded to get some x-rays and further imaging, and that was all pretty negative. But
and this guy had to play the part. I mean,
he was good.
Not be able.
He was good. I mean, we do stuff like you can put a needle into the foot.
Wow.
And do some other things, painful stimuli, and he didn't flinch. I mean, he was very good. And so we ended up getting some imaging, and that was all normal. I mean, he didn't have a broken neck. There wasn't anything wrong on the imaging, but it still doesn't necessarily rule out that, he doesn't have a serious condition. And so it came to the point where I had to make a decision. Was I going to put this guy on the road for an hour and a half, transfer to the tertiary care center, the large university hospital where they have neurosurgeons and spine surgeons, or am I going to figure something out? So I just had something in the back of my mind, and so I caught him off guard. I was talking to him and asking him to follow my finger, do this, and so I reached down and basically grabbed his junk very suddenly and twisted.
And grabbed him by the nutsack and twisted.
And there was quite a reaction.
Yes.
I think if he knew it was coming, he probably, this guy, I could put needles into his foot.
Right.
And he didn't flinch. But I think it caught him by surprise, and by the way he moved, everything jumped. He's not paralyzed.
He's not paralyzed.
There's nothing there.
Or you cured him.
And then he just went absolutely ballistic at that time. So he knew, and so they basically let him out in cuffs. And so that was. I'm
gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
Oh, that's not the first time.
You're dead. You're dead.
Yep.
You messed up. You prevented a prison break.
Possibly.
No, not possibly.
We'll never know.
Come
the guy
on,
could
man.
have
An hour and a half drive down some shady road in Wisconsin to another hospital.
Oh, he's paralyzed. We don't need to worry about him.
That's the movie version of this.
Yeah. Exactly. Cars pull out.
And of course, it would have to be at night.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
When it happens.
Thunderstorms.
Yeah, thunderstorms. And all of a sudden, car goes careening off the road because he gets smacked by another car. And then your big bruiser inmate is out. He's on the lam.
Yep.
But right now he's back in the joint.
He is.
Well done, sir. You could probably, for those of you who are fans of TLC, I know that those episodes are available I know people don't watch them anymore, but they're on DVD, and you could probably search them out online as well. Speaking of online, Hansberry.
Yeah, well, maybe we can find that YouTube clip and post it on Whiskey Business's Facebook page.
We can do that because he sent it to us. We still have it.
We'll do that.
We'll do that.
Also, there's a Brady Bunch episode where that happens. Where Mike Brady, there was a car accident, and there was a guy who claimed he had this neck brace. You remember it? And he grabs his nuts. No, Mike Brady drops his briefcase.
Oh no!
And then the guy goes, "Bah?"
What?
And he jerks his head, and the whole courtroom gasps, and Mike Brady's the hero. So there you go.
Okay.
I'm not saying you stole that from Mr. Brady, but
It would have been better if it raised.
It would have been, it would have been better if Mr. Brady.
but yeah, Facebook. We digress. Instagram, and I wanted to say.
Nuts. Then Alice would have had something witty to say
Yeah,
afterwards.
and Sam would have celebrated with a big thing of meat.
And Carol would have shaken her head.
There we go.
Oh my.
I wanted to remind people that the Whiskey Business cocktail is actually still available at the
Great Southern Whiskey Bar?
Jesse Hubbard said that he was going to keep it on for a couple more weeks or a little bit longer because it was a hit.
It was a huge success.
However,
the night we were there, they sold like 42, 45 of them.
It's a great cocktail, and it has a great name.
It
It
does.
was Whiskey Business. But on Instagram, Jesse gave me the okay to actually post the recipe.
Nice.
So I'm going to do that later. When this episode drops, it'll probably
Okay.
already be out there. You can hear it. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Subscribe to us on YouTube. YouTube with Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis.
It's nice that you have to actually read that.
Yeah, well,
right
I forget
here.
sometimes. Also, subscribe to us on iTunes, your favorite podcasting app, and rate and review. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, a reminder, if you're not doing anything on August the 25th, the Columbus Podcast Awards will be taking place at the Gateway Theater from 6 to 8. All you have to do is go to ColumbusPodcastAwards.com and get free tickets and see if Whiskey Business walks away with any of the gold, or if you're partial to other podcasts, maybe they'll walk away with the gold. Either way, it should be a fun time to come celebrate with us on August the 25th. And prior to that, on August the 20th,
The Premise.
The Premise returns to the upfront stage at Shadowbox Live. Whiskey Business presents The Premise. So the two comedians getting premises that they've never seen or heard until that night, and then having 20 minutes to write 3 to 5 minutes of stand-up with special guests, Jerry Elliott from QFM 96, Nikki Winkleman. Our comedy competition is with the OG of comedy improv, Jeff Gage. And the very funny Jack Shepard from Def Comedy Jam. So join us on August the 20th. There, we got all the business out of the way. Abs, are you enjoying this? Our guest bottle tonight
It is very good.
We've had Calumet Farm whiskey before, but we've never had the Kentucky, the single rack black, the aged for 12 years.
Kentucky.
Calumet Farms.
Very good.
This is Calumet Farms, 94 proof. I didn't offer Dead of Glass because when
He
he was on the
doesn't-
podcast, I had to get Seagram 7.
I forgot about
and
that.
a whole bunch of 7-Up.
And the cherries, too.
Yeah, no. This is a 94 proof. It's made up of small batches of 19 different barrels, and it brings up an interesting point because I'm not going to ask you about the nose or the taste, because if I remember correctly from high school, you have no discernible taste or smell. True?
More smell. No,
More
I have
smell.
some taste.
Some taste?
But a lot of your taste is made up through your sense of smell.
Okay.
So you can, people who get colds, when
I have a
nose
cold
gets
right now,
plugged up,
yeah.
it degrades your sense of taste. So, but I've been that way my whole life.
Because we would do, and this is where Det needs to maybe come in and chime in for a second, because I don't remember exactly, but we would make you eat and smell ridiculous things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we pour salt. We'd pour salt on your food and when you weren't looking, and that was a good one. But then the best one, can I tell the?
Yeah.
Okay, so Abs had this trick he would do where we were in chemistry class. You know those chem hoses. And
Rubber hoses.
and so we'd ask Mike. We say, Mike, please do it, please do it. He'd go, oh, it hurts. We're like, oh, Mike, please do it, please do it. So he'd say, okay. So he'd shove the chem hose in his left nostril.
Right.
Plug it into the faucet, turn the faucet on, and we'd see it fly out his nose. And it was the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life.
And when there'd be applause.
Yeah.
He'd cry a little bit, it was okay.
Yeah.
He cried a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah. So
functionally anosmic is the word. So in my line of work,
what is functionally what?
anosmic?
Anosmic.
Anosmia is the lack of sense of smell.
Sense of smell, but you still can taste this whiskey.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so what do you think of this whiskey?
This is good. It
Yeah.
has, see, again, with whiskey and beer, you talk about, oh, there's a hint of caramel or this. No, it's,
Right.
it's like, it's either like really bad or really good. And this is good. It's interesting. It's a different taste.
You're
I don't
picking
know.
up on the hints of vanilla and oak.
No, but-
and a nice,
but there's-
spicy long finish
No,
is
there's
what you got
something,
going
yeah,
on there.
there's something different about this.
I picked up some cherry off the bat.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't get any of that at all. I got the vanilla and it's kind of peppery and a nice long finish at the
Yeah,
end.
there's some alcohol.
There's alcohol.
Yeah,
It is
it's-
94 proof.
Yeah, 94 proof.
When it first came out, it retailed for like $69.99 a bottle. Good luck.
Wow.
You'll be paying right now if you find it on the shelves. I think it came out in 2018, maybe 2017 or 2018. I don't remember. But now I've seen it for as much as 100 some a bottle. So it goes against our $50 and under bottle, but it was a gift, so I don't feel bad.
Special occasion.
Yeah, and a special occasion. Yeah, I wanted to have nothing but the best tasting and smelling whiskey for the guy who can't taste or smell.
I'm a big fan of
I should have gotten a plastic bottle of Imperial whiskey like we used to drink at the Spot Bar.
Oh, right.
Yeah, right.
White House. There's a couple of those.
There's bottom shelf whiskeys that are really quite good. We discussed this last week.
Well, Paddy, which is sort of the working's man whiskey over in Ireland.
Right.
That's my mainstay now. I really like that.
Yeah, Paddy's a great
Yeah.
Irish whiskey. So do you lean towards the Irish whiskeys and the Scotches because of your background?
Well, no, I'm pretty much a
Abernethy.
bourbon and gin. My recent forays into the UK, they drink a lot of gin in England, and
Gin's making a big comeback here in the U.S. as
it
well.
is, especially with these micro distilleries and craft gins, I guess. But yeah,
Gin is cool again, man. And I'm hoping it gets even cooler and more popular so that the young hipsters can back off the bourbon and go run over to the gin for a while and leave us people who loved bourbon before the boom
yeah.
came, so we can get our bourbon because and if you are a young hipster who likes bourbon and actually buys it and drinks it, you're good with me. But if you're a young hipster who buys it and collects it just so you can show it to your friends when they come in, yeah, bullshit. Yeah, go drink gin. Anyway. So you like this?
Good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, boys, you like it as well, Mr. Whitney,
That's good.
Hansberry.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, Abs. I mean, I look at you and your life, and I know what you've done over the course of your years. You're a respected medical professional, right? But you didn't even go to school initially to be a doctor. You became an engineer. And you're just one of these people like, I think I'll be a doctor. and then you become a doctor.
Not quite that easy.
Yes, it was that easy. That's how it seemed to us. For those of us who struggled through 4 years of college, I know Det struggled and he got through. I struggled and did not get through. I couldn't even get the
Or you
degree.
didn't even try. That's
I tried it my own way. If there would have been life credits back then, if there would have been life credits,
'Cause they're doing them now.
at OSU,
Yeah.
right now I could be I might have a master's right now if they actually apply life credits to
Dr. Tripodi.
Dr. Tripodis. That's
Yeah.
right. But yeah, it seems that way. You went to Youngstown State University.
Well, I started out, you got to remember, I sort of did the same route you did, worked in the mills, and I tell you, that was tempting. Back then,
we were making good bank.
pushing a broom or working, I worked in the BOP, the basic oxygen furnace, which was, it's sort of, you have a lot of young people in there for the same reason you have young Marines, because, it's like working in a volcano.
It was hot.
And as it was hot, it was miserable, and it was dangerous. But, at 18, you're immortal.
How much? Yeah, do you remember how much we were getting paid back then?
I remember I was making almost $16
right.
an hour.
I thought it was somewhere between 16 and 18
when
bucks
minimum
an hour.
wage was about $3 an hour.
Right.
And so I'm looking, what am I doing? And so I did 2 summers working labor gang with serious thoughts of giving up school and just coming back. And for the third summer, I came back as an engineering intern and took a 50% cut in pay.
Right.
Yeah, it was funny compared to the kids working the labor gang. So working the labor gang, I was making more than the guys starting in engineering were making with a degree. It's
crazy.
So what am I doing?
Yeah,
and
I'm making bank here.
yeah.
Well, I tell you what it did for me, because I was making, like I said, somewhere between 14 and 15 bucks an hour pushing a broom. And my job was to literally push the broom from that end of the hallway down to this end of the hallway. And I go, then what? He goes, push it back.
Take your time.
And take your time. But then they put me in the blast furnace.
Yep.
And I went, I'm going to go to school.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to college.
I think my sentinel moment was
yeah.
working on the coke ovens, and
Oh.
we were shoveling lids.
I did that.
Did you have to wear the wooden shoes?
Oh, I
You-
wore this whole plastic thing and a mask. and
You couldn't wear regular boots because they would melt.
Melt.
And so you'd have to put on these wooden sandals over your boots. And so here you are on a hot summer night, and not to mention, what's coming up off the furnace there.
Right.
Yeah. So I said, the money's one thing, but I don't think I could do this for the
But
rest of my
then
life.
we all made the right choices and went ahead to college, and lucky that we did, because then shortly thereafter, our little mill town started to hit hard times.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so how come you didn't pursue broadcasting since your old man was in it?
I don't think I ever had an interest in that.
Did he want
in
you to
media.
do something like
oh,
that?
No. Dad was a musician at heart.
So are
and-
you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
You play drums.
Yep.
We'll get into that in a second.
What did he play?
Dad was a trumpet player and a singer. That's how he met my mother. He was in one of the band at Walter Reed when they were both in the Army. But so Dad was a musician, but being a musician doesn't pay the bills. Right. And so he had some connections when he was in his 20s, to some people in radio, and gradually drifted into radio. So.
Yeah, so radio wasn't a chosen path for him either initially.
No, he was a musician.
Much
yeah.
like, I was not a musician, but I was a stand-up comedian, and so kind of parallel paths in our pursuit for radio. And how long was he on the air?
Oh, geez. So from the time he was with WSTV, he started in 1959 till
he had a stroke and
98. Yeah. So 60,
59.
almost 40 years.
Yeah.
That's
wow.
with WSTV, and then another 10 years before that. So.
You got me beat.
Yep.
You know.
he would have stayed on the mic until the day he died if it wasn't for a stroke.
Yep.
I would have stayed on the mic till the day I died if it wasn't for my stroke. I didn't have a stroke. I didn't have a stroke.
That was it. I was trying to figure it out. Yeah, that's it.
No, I didn't.
Stroke.
I didn't have a stroke. I did, but I did 24 years in
Yeah.
one spot, and he had longevity in one spot. So
Yeah.
But no, you didn't think, oh man, my dad's got a cool job. I want to be like Dad.
No, Dad made clear he wasn't making money. The guys in the mill were making a lot more money than he was, and he had the opportunity to move into bigger markets, and he had major offers.
Why didn't he
but
take them?
He had 5 kids.
And
Yeah, how do you pick up and move 5 kids and all that? Yeah.
I'm being a little
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah,
I had a chance to go to Washington D.C. when
But-
I was at Saturday 95 top 5 market in the country, and
But his choices.
same reason I stayed because of my kid.
And I was told, after his funeral, meeting some of his old friends, they said, yeah, he really had it, and he could have easily moved into the big markets, but he chose to stay.
But he was a king.
He was.
He
AM
was
radio.
a king over
AM
the radio land that he ruled, right?
Yes, he was.
You know,
He was.
No, he didn't
he
want
was
for
beloved.
anything. He
Yeah.
was beloved. I mean, there's a certain cost that you can't put on that.
Right.
You can't
Absolutely.
translate it into dollars and cents.
Absolutely.
The respect of the town that you live in, and people love you and care about you. And if I guarantee you, over the course of that career, if Tom Abernethy needed anything, people would be rushing to help in a heartbeat.
Oh, and they still remember. He passed away in 2013, but my mother still lives in town, and everyone still remembers him.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I remember your dad driving us down to Bridgeport, just down the road on Route 7 from Steubenville, Ohio, and dropping us off and leaving us on our own because Dr. Abernethy did not have a car. Dr. Abernethy would hitchhike and also hop trains. He's a freaking hobo is what he was. And I decided that I would actually hitchhike back to Columbus with you. And it's the one time and the only time I've ever hitchhiked. I haven't done it since because I got to be honest with you, I wasn't sure we were going to get to Columbus with the ride that we got.
Yeah, that was an interesting time. But
Tell them about the ride.
well, so we're coming back on a Sunday. Again, Dad, that was a standard thing. He'd ride me down to I-70 about 20 miles to the south.
It's a good dad. Didn't just drop you off.
Drop
on the
me
ramp.
off.
That's
Oh,
it.
and he felt bad. Yeah, here you go.
Yeah, you'll be good.
No,
Yeah.
that was my doing. And he said, and he confided into me years later. He always felt so bad doing that. But again, for me, it was like, yeah, this is what I do. It's no problem. And I always got back and forth. So, yeah, I decided to take Dino along on a ride. We didn't hop any trains, unfortunately.
No, I would have done that though. I think I would have been adventurous enough to hop a train.
But I remember we had one or two rides, got around St. Clairsville, and this camper pulls aside, and it's like, hop in the back. And we get in the back of the camper, and there's these two very large women, and it was frightening.
They were from West Virginia,
yeah, or
right?
something.
Yeah.
They were going, and
Yeah.
they were trying to be very friendly, and I think we were both very frightened.
Yeah, we were. We were. I was extremely frightened. I actually thought we were going to get assaulted, sexually assaulted by these women who were bigger than us.
Oh, they were.
You know?
At the time, I was weighing in at
Yeah.
about 125 pounds.
Yeah, and I was lucky to be $160, $165 back then, and these women were twice that.
I think we talked our way out of that one, and eventually they had to stop for gas or something. And we're good here.
We're
gonna
good.
take it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we made it to Columbus.
We made it back to Columbus, and it was definitely an experience. But and while that still is a fond memory, not as good as one of the rides you got when you were hitchhiking. You got picked up by John Glenn.
Yeah, Senator John Glenn. He was
Senator John Glenn, astronaut John Glenn.
son of Ohio.
Son of Ohio.
From Muskingum, I believe.
Well, still Ohio, but doesn't matter. He stopped and picked you up.
So I was hitchhiking. Again, hitchhiking is an art. I tens of thousands of miles. You have basically 10 seconds while someone's going by, and they're going to make that decision, whether they're going to pick you up or not. And so I found that the college student thing always works well. You have a sign. You don't say you're going to Columbus. You're going to Ohio State.
Genius.
Yeah.
Bravo,
Or
well
even if
done.
I'm going to, North Carolina, I'd always just use college names. And so that always worked very well. Always had stuff in a backpack, always looked fairly decent. And, there's an art to it. So, again, the same route, I was going back to Columbus. I think I was in grad school then. It was about 1980. John Glenn was one of the Ohio senators. At that time, I believe he was looking at as a presidential candidate also. But same exit in Bridgeport. I was, going. So this car pulls up and
Dad
stops.
dropped you off. Don't worry, Dad. You never know. I might get picked up by a senator.
Yeah. And so this was a nice car.
you
It
ever
was a
been to
big,
Space
big
Kid?
Buick. It wasn't a limo or anything. It pulls aside.
You remember the car he had?
It was
a
a nice car. And this guy gets out of the front, sort of a big guy in a suit with dark glasses, a flat top cut.
Right,
and it's like,
right.
And so he walks up to me. He goes, "Where are you going?" And he goes, "I'm going to Ohio State. I'm a student." And he had a couple questions. He goes, "Wait right here." And he goes back to the back of the car, sort of opens the door. He's talking to the man in the back. He says, "Okay, here, you can hop in the back."
Who was in the back?
And so I get in the back, and I look, and I didn't recognize him at first. And we start talking. He says, "Hi, I'm John Glenn."
Oh, so it wasn't John Glenn that came out and
No, it
approached
was
you.
his driver.
It was his driver.
Yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't John Glenn just freewheeling
No,
on
no.
70 in a Buick and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
pulled over and picked up some college kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never get any alone time. So he was in the back seat.
Yeah, he had a driver, right. So John's in the backseat. And so it's like, oh my God. So this man, again, was one of my childhood heroes.
Yeah.
And I had followed his career, and I thought, wow. And so he had a lot of questions for me. It's really interesting because at that time, I think he was trying to gauge the public. He was looking seriously at it being a presidential candidate. I can remember he asked me about my family, what my father did. He knew of Steubenville. Again, he grew up in sort of southeast Ohio
Right.
there. But for what is it, about 2 hours from Bridgeport to Columbus, just talked, and he was very enthusiastic. I mean, he's heard these same questions from other people. I'm asking, what was it like? What was this? And, he answered them with such enthusiasm, and, just an amazing individual. And so we get to Columbus, and we pull up to the house, and at that time I was living with a couple other guys, and we had sort of I don't know whether you call it a slum, but it wasn't the most.
Well,
we all lived
in less than
but,
desirable
a lot
housing.
of the other guys that were engineering geeks says, "Oh my God, these guys are going to lose it." I've got, I said, could I introduce you to some of my roommates? They get her. Yeah, sure. I've got about 10 minutes, no problem. So I run into the house, guys. No one's home.
No.
Crap. Okay, I've got my camera. So grab my camera, go down. Do you mind if we take a picture or something? I got to prove the guys. Sure, no problem. No film. Man.
Where were these?
Where were
when
these?
you
Yeah,
needed
no
them,
digital
right?
cameras. or
Selfie.
anything.
Yeah.
But no, then he had to go on his way. But yeah, so it was an amazing experience.
And you guys stayed engaged in conversation the whole
the
drive?
whole time,
The whole time.
absolutely. We talked about again. We had a background. He was an engineer. He had great love for the state of Ohio, and he knew it very well. Had a lot of questions about college students. What were they thinking about? Various things that were going on in politics at that time. So yeah, we talked solid for about 2 hours.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and to spend that one-on-one time with, and so when he passed away, when was that? 2 years ago. That was wow. That just brought back a lot of
I
memories.
bet.
Yeah, and it's
I
like
bet.
wow, he was a good man. Who else marries their kindergarten sweetheart? And is with her for his entire life.
You got me.
Yep.
I don't know
An
who else I would-
amazing individual.
Yeah.
Yep.
What an incredible story.
Yep.
And a great memory to have. Yeah. But, no picture.
No picture.
So we got to believe
Yeah,
it.
so
Yeah,
we
I
actually
gotta
have to
believe
take
it,
you
yeah.
at your word.
Pick or it didn't happen.
Yeah.
I think he's lying.
Your sister says,
Yeah.
I think he's lying. So you get a degree in engineering.
Yep.
Yeah. And then you decide what? You don't want to be an engineer
Well, I was working
anymore?
in that, and so went back to grad school in engineering.
Grad school in
Yeah, I was
engineering.
working on a
Okay.
PhD.
You got a PhD in engineering. And then you decide,
Well, things sort of went sour
I
on
think
my.
I'll be a doctor.
Yeah. It's something I think I always had in the back of my mind. And then during this, too, I had joined the Ohio National Guard. And this was at a time, you got to realize that the military wasn't very popular.
Right.
And it's a decision I made.
What years would these be now?
This would have probably been about 1984, 83, 84.
Okay.
And the military wasn't very popular, but there were some advantages and some things I wanted to do. There was an aviation unit in Columbus that I was interested in joining, and so I did. Both my parents were veterans, and of course they're very supportive. But yeah, it was incredibly unpopular on campus. You didn't wear a uniform on campus,
Right.
and you really didn't tell people you were in the military. But through that, I got an exposure to aviation. I got an exposure to some of the pre-hospital care, EMS, and medicine things. And so things started to shift at that point.
That's when you started to say, maybe I'll be a doctor.
Yeah.
But how many people actually? I mean, I can count on one hand and not use all. That'd be about it. That they go through this very difficult course of study to be an engineer. That's not an easy field to
Right.
get your PhD in engineering, and then to start all over and decide you want to be a doctor.
There's quite a few. Like in my class in Cincinnati, I think we had about 15% of us were former engineers. So it's not in medical school anymore. It's not the traditional biology, chemistry, or zoology. You have people from all sorts of backgrounds: theater, business.
But you still have to go through that course of study. You still have to.
For pre-med, yeah. There's basic requirements in pre-med, right? Regardless of whether you're going into music or engineering. Or
And do you have a specialty now in medicine?
Yeah,
Is it-
emergency
the
medicine.
emergency medicine is your
Yeah.
specialty?
So I graduated in medical school, and then I did 4 years specialty training in emergency medicine at the University of Chicago.
How old are you now?
I will be 60 next month.
Right, you're the
Yep.
same age as
Yeah.
us. So, what are you going to do next?
What am I going to do next? Nah,
I think I will be king. I would
Nah.
like to be a king. And then,
I tell you though, it's interesting. We were talking about social media, And here I am in the autumn of my career. You'd think things would be fairly fixed. And starting about 2013 with the advent, Facebook, Twitter, a lot of these things are not just for social friend circles. People use them as tools for business, tools for education. And there's a whole movement in medicine, for using social media for education, blogs. Twitter's sort of the net that connects everything together. So through this, because I sort of operated in isolation in the United States, my subspecialty is helicopter EMS. I work primarily for a helicopter program at the University of Wisconsin.
That was going to be my next question. What made you want to dive into that part of it?
Oh, that's all I've ever wanted to do. I mean, from the get-go, I knew that's exactly what I wanted to do, and I sought out a training program that offered that. And then when I took my first job, they had that, so it was very intentional.
And I don't mean to be overly dramatic when I ask this, but almost every time you get in that copter, it's serious, right?
Nah, not as much as you'd think. There's a lot of that's a whole other podcast, but they tend to be, yes. They tend to be the more ill, more critical patients. But that's the nice thing is I'm only taking care of one patient at a time, whereas in the emergency department, I've got to handle whatever comes through the door, and they're all mine. So,
does the engineering background come into play as your success as a physician, as far as decision making and some of these, fast? I would imagine in the ER and on the helicopter as well, you've got to make some life-saving decisions.
I'd say it teaches a thought process, which is good. But a lot of this stuff, you'd be surprised. It's you not shoot from the hip, but with 30 years experience, I can just look at something, and there's not. We wouldn't call it intuition. There's a great book by Malcolm Gladwell called Blink.
I read Blink.
And he talks about that. So after so much experience, the fireman walks into a house, something's not right. And, you develop that sense. And it's not the best thing in an academic environment because it's nothing that can be taught. It's just something that you accrue after seeing 100,000 patients. And so at this stage of my life, it's a valuable tool.
Yeah. Obviously, you've lost patients.
Oh.
Well, how'd you feel the first time you lost a patient?
Well, again,
there's got to be, in that job, there has to be dramatic firsts. I would have to think that the first time you lost somebody because of what you did or what you couldn't do, well, that would have to affect you somehow.
Yeah.
Or are you just ice cold blood running through your veins?
Every physician has cemeteries. You have those patients you lost, and you visit them on a regular basis, and you learn from your mistakes. The problem comes when you take up residence in the cemeteries, and then you can't work anymore. And I've seen that.
Can't let it go.
Yeah, I've seen that with colleagues. And fortunately, if it happens early in a career, it can be devastating. To have something go very bad. But that's not to say, as I get older,
for lack of a better word, if it happens early in a career and you can't get rid of that cemetery in your mind, it's almost like you get a case of the yips.
Right. Yeah.
You're just afraid to
you
do
get gun shy.
You're afraid to make any decisions. Like, am I going to be wrong again, or am I going to make a mistake again?
But you realize after you've done it for a while, and that's part of the business. So,
yeah.
And you do the best you can.
What about some of the great saves? Do you have anything memorable that was just where
absolutely.
you just walked out of there feeling like, I'm a doctor, and I just did my doctorate, and I saved a life.
You need to remind yourself of those, but just as, you don't dwell on the failures, there's those hot dog cowboy things that come across great, and you save a life, and it's always good to come across someone years later about that. I had an epiphany in the Walmart about a year ago. So I'm feeling bad. It's the middle of January. The sun hasn't shone in 2 weeks. I'm working a string of nights, just seeing drunks and sick people. And here, it's like, what the hell am I doing with my life? I'm getting just pretty depressed. And so pick up some things. And I had to stop at Walmart on the way home. And I'm in the line, and this lady's staring at me. and she's staring at me, and she points, and she starts talking in Spanish. And she drops to her knees, and she grabs me around my waist. And it's like, I'm sorry, ma'am. You only have 2 items. You can go. I'm sorry. And her son is standing there, and he's about 20 years old. And he goes, "Are you Dr. Abernethy?" Again, I had my old...
I said, "No, I'm Dr. Abernethy."
I had my old Army jacket on. And I go, "Yeah, I am." And so in this town that I've worked in, I've worked there for the last 25 years, and I've seen everybody. He goes, "Well, my name's, I forget what it was, Emil Rodriguez." He was Hispanic or Mexican. And still didn't bring her a bell. And then he pulls down his shirt. He has a collar, and I see this scar from his earlobe down to his sternal notch. And it was like, bam. It's sort of like the dream sequence. I go back 20 years, and I remember this mother comes in, his car screams up to the ER. This kid is limp. He's bleeding to death out of his neck. He was bouncing. He and his cousin were bouncing on a couch. He put his head through a china cabinet window.
Oh, man.
And so he's bleeding to death to the point where he doesn't have a pulse. It's like, oh, crap. So you do what you got to do. Fortunately, I had 2 very good nurses there. We start working on this kid. I eventually get the bleeding controlled. I get blood started. We arrange, after about a half hour, we get a pulse and a pressure back, but he's not responding. He's brain dead. He's gone too long without oxygen. And so we arrange transfer to one of the local trauma centers. And that's really the last, you don't ask questions you don't want answers to. And that was really the last I ever thought of that child or anything about it until 25 years later. And this kid explains, he goes, "Yeah, I don't remember any of it. I was 3 years old, but I was in the hospital for a couple weeks, and I'm fine. I have no deficits." He graduated college. I believe he was going to grad school in Chicago. In the meantime, we're talking. His mother has me around. She's on her knees just weeping. The security guard comes over. "Are you okay?" And so we go through this conversation, and and he says, "Yeah, I've always wanted to meet you. You're a legend amongst my family.
Still.
Yeah. And but I'd like to thank you." And so, oh, wow, that was great. And I walk outside, and it was like a movie. Clouds parted.
Oh, yeah, man.
The sun came down. Ha, da, da, da. And so, so that, 20 years later.
Isn't it amazing? You never know at what point in your life you're going to get that confirmation, that validation, that one thing that says, okay, yeah, this is why I do it, because we do. We go on over the course of our lives and do what we do day in, day out. Don't think twice about it. But you never know how you're affecting somebody else.
Right. Someone said, that time you intervened, or that time you said a kind word or answered my phone call, it made the difference. And so you wonder,
And then,
the debt's chomping. Get over the microphone.
No.
I want to hear it.
And then when you left her, did you call ICE?
Really? You were chomping on the bit for that? Really? Boo. Now I know why you haven't been back on the podcast. Okay. That was a beautiful moment ruined by Greg DeTore. He finished it, and you put a nasty smirch on it.
Yep.
All right. No, that's amazing, man. That's amazing. That's amazing.
So epiphany at the Walmart, you never saw it coming.
You never really do see epiphanies coming. I think that's why they call them epiphanies.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'd call them, "Hey, something's coming," and you'd be all wrapped up in it.
Yeah.
But so, what do you do? For fun. Abs was always this crazy, wacky, just completely not really sure. Your sister said something very interesting before the podcast started. You got to remember that my brother was ADD before anybody knew about ADD. Yeah, and I would tend to agree with that. I mean, you were all over the place.
Oh yeah, and it's a blessing. I'd hate to think if I grew up in today's society,
Would you be able to?
I don't know. I would probably been medicated.
You would have been.
You
would have been medicated. That's right.
Who knows?
Yeah. You'd have a side pocket full of Ritalin and good to go.
Yeah.
What do you do for fun, man? I mean, your work sounds so overwhelmingly demanding. Like it almost seems like a 24/7 type of thing.
No, it's not demanding. Again, I've trained for it my whole life. I'm good at it. I'm comfortable with it. I enjoy it. You know.
I mentioned musician earlier. You and Det were in the high school marching band together.
Yeah. Oh,
that's where you two met. Oh, I'm sorry, and your sister as well.
Yeah, she was. Yeah,
she was there as well.
Key part of our growth in high school.
That's where you two. That's where you all met, right? Was marching band.
It was great. Abs was like, so you came in what, our sophomore or junior year?
Yeah.
And Abs had grown up in a neighborhood, like we were like in the same neighborhood, but I didn't really know him.
Yeah.
And then he came in the marching band, and he was like my idiot soulmate. We just like clicked, and we're like, he'd be stupid, I'd be stupid. And
we'd get in more trouble.
We were stupid together.
Yeah.
And that's when, like, years later, when I heard, like, he was an engineer, he's a doctor. He's an idiot. That's impossible, because he's like me. There's no way. But he had brains and I didn't. But
that's a beautiful story, and it kind of hurts my feelings a little bit because I thought I was your idiot soulmate, all these years.
No, you're my funny soulmate. He's like an idiot. He was stupid.
The Monty Python versus the right?
Yeah. Far more sophisticated.
We
Yes.
were more the spit You're kind of like the Dennis Miller.
Before there was a Dennis Miller.
Yeah, there you go.
That's funny. So music still part of your life?
Not as much, as far as playing. Now the granddaughters are going through music classes.
Granddaughters?
Granddaughters.
You have grandchildren?
I have 2 grandchildren. Yeah.
No way.
They are 10 and 5.
10?
Yep.
The third one's on the way.
Third one's on the way. Yep.
Man.
A lot of fun.
He's just got me beat in every aspect of life.
got us
He was
all
an
beat.
engineer.
Yeah.
He was a doctor. Now he's got grandchildren. I don't have any grandchildren yet. I don't.
A lot of fun,
I think I would know.
Going through music classes with them and doing some fun things. But I never played brass or strings professionally. Getting pretty good on ukulele though. So
Okay.
I've been taking lessons and.
What did we say in the last week? Prove it.
Yeah, prove it. Get it out.
I know it's pretty good, not that good.
So it's still part of your life. And
But I think music is a part of my life, and that's for my father.
are you still married?
Yes.
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 Yeah. And what's your wife do?
She basically takes care of the grandchildren. We live on 20 acres, and then we have an animal shelter.
I was going to bring up Roscoe. Yeah.
Roscoe Animal Retreat.
Roscoe Animal Retreat for years.
That's been going on for 30 years or so. Yeah.
Which is also an amazing.
Yeah, it's a no-kill shelter.
Yeah.
Not-for-profit, yeah. And so that's a full-time job for her. She does a great job running the place, because...
Mostly cats and dogs? Or
Cats and dogs,
Cats and dogs?
We've had other animals of our own, but yeah, the retreat's primarily cats and dogs.
How many in there at any given time?
I don't know how many hundred. Yeah, cats and, quite a few.
If there's any animal lovers out there, like he said, a no-kill shelter... I know in Columbus we have no-kill shelters.
Yeah.
In fact, every year when I do this charity at the Funny Bone, a portion of the money goes to a no-kill shelter.
And the big thing, spay and neuter. That's huge.
But if people are listening in other parts of the country or the world and wanted to donate to the Roscoe Animal Retreat, how would they do that? What's the website? Is there?
We actually sort of stay low.
Stay low profile.
Yeah, sort of a low profile.
Okay,
but,
you want to keep it that way?
Yeah.
There's no such thing as the Roscoe Animal
Yeah,
Retreat.
yeah.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
Yeah,
It was just
nothing there.
just a little piece. It's filler conversation for tonight. Yeah, you just know you guys have been doing what you do for a long time.
Yeah, 30 years. Yeah.
That's
And
a
so
long
we're
time.
trying to downsize, and then with what we have, and instead of putting all this time and effort into taking care of these given animals, put it all into free spay and neuter, and for people who can't afford spays and neuters, and that's the biggest problem. That's how you treat it.
Wow.
Yep.
Quite the life, Mr. Abernethy.
Never a dull moment.
Yeah. And we say when you look ahead and look forward, I mean, personally, is there anything else you want to, because I talked about this with Det, I feel that there's still another chapter still to go, and I'm curious as to what it might be, but by the same time, I have no freaking clue as to what it might be. So are you looking for, is there something that you have a goal set in mind, like before it's all said and done, I still want to do this, or is it more of an open mind thing, like I'm keeping an open mind and looking for the next opportunity or the next adventure, whatever that might be?
Yeah, I think it's the next opportunity. Again, things have changed dramatically in the last 6 years through social media. I've done a lot of stuff international, spent a lot of time in the UK and Ireland. again, in the business of helicopter emergency medicine. And, it's just been great meeting a lot of like minds, and never saw that one coming.
And you're in Columbus for work reasons,
some
right?
business stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, so never saw that coming. I don't think I want to retire. I'm 60, but hey, I'm good health. If I'd retire, I'd probably get into too much trouble. And, but I could see things shifting towards more of a consulting and an education type thing. And the world's getting smaller. I mean, the idea of social media, working on projects with physicians and medics really all over the world. I was working on one project where we had a WhatsApp group, and we had people on 7 continents, including Antarctica, Concordia Base in Antarctica, and we're talking in real time on a project. So
Amazing.
Yeah, it's just astounding.
You had no desire to pursue broadcasting, much like your father had, but have your children followed in your footsteps?
No,
No, what do they do?
No, my daughter teaches ice skating, and my son works for Chrysler. So, but they do a good job.
And you're happy with what they're doing? And,
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter what I feel. They're happy.
Well, no, there are some parents. There are some parents.
Oh,
who,
yeah, you
who
have to be a
insist
doc-
that you're going to
No,
be
no,
a doctor.
no. No, you're gonna do what you want.
Yeah, we grew up with friends
Yeah.
in high school. The Kellises.
But they're rich.
The Kellises were like, they had no choice in the matter.
Yeah.
Their father said, "You're going to be doctors," and they're all 3 doctors, very successful and excellent doctors.
Yep.
But there was no choice in the matter.
No, our parents were always, yes, you will go to college.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it's up to you.
Yeah, my mom's still waiting for me to figure it out.
Christine.
Especially now. You remember my mom,
I
Christine?
remember your mom.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, my mom was on the podcast
Yeah,
not too
that was a
long
great
ago.
one, yeah.
That was she's 83 now. She had a birthday in July, and this whole phase of where I'm at right now
Yep.
in life, retired from Sunday 95, does not set well with her at all.
No
She
benefits.
does not. No benefits. I don't understand. Yeah, because my mother worked. Granted, it was part time at the end, but she worked till she was almost 80 years old, even part-time. And it was only then that she finally, stepped out of that a little bit. And I was amazed at how messed up things were when she left.
Wow.
And the doctor's office that she worked at, because she had her system. Now, granted, it wasn't, she wasn't in step with everything, the technology, but
It was her system.
it was her system. And when she left, all the technology in the world couldn't find what they needed to find, but Christine knew where it was, and she took a little bit of like, yeah, well, I
Okay.
guess they forced me out. They forced you out at 80. They can't be forcing you out at 80, but at 60, yeah. I mean, you said you're in reasonable good health.
Yeah, doing well.
Yeah.
See a doctor once every 2 years.
How is that when a doctor goes to see a doctor?
Oh, yeah. So it's the same thing with my family. They'll ask me questions. I go see a doctor. I'm not going to.
All right, that's great. And take that off the list. I
Man,
was
damn
hoping
it.
we get free physicals.
I-
Night was out.
I've got this thing I want you to
I
look at.
handle, I definitely handle emergencies when they come up in the family, but routine stuff, it's like, no, you can't do that to me. You need to follow up. It's sort of like having a good plumber or a good electrician or something, the same thing. You have to have a good doctor that you can trust. And, I deal with emergencies and
Right.
all that stuff. I don't deal with the day-to-day things. And
So when you go see your doctor
Yeah.
and he gives you a diagnosis, do you just sometimes go,
not really.
Are you sure?
I don't
Are
have
you
any,
Sure?
I'm-
you maybe want to check this, or how about no? Because it's I know what I'm feeling, and I was hoping maybe we would concur, but you're saying something way different.
Nah, it doesn't happen that way. Even with my mom, when she wants me to interact with her, she has like a great oncologist in Pittsburgh. She has a good doctor locally. She always wants, what do I think? What do I think? I go, well, what do your doctors think? These are the people taking care of you. You've chosen them. You trust them. They're very good at what they do. I'll follow their lead. So
But she needs your validation.
yeah, I have to validate. Say yes, they're good.
has to hear
Mom
validation.
needs his validation
Yeah.
on what her doctors say.
Her doctors say. Yeah.
Okay,
But-
and
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
you just blindly concur.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
because otherwise you're setting yourself up for
Exactly.
for
Yeah.
a much longer
No,
conversation.
as I said, they're very good people, very well trained, very reputable. So that's the key in life. You find them to take care of that. You can't do it all. It's like, can I do plumbing? Yes, I actually can, and I'm pretty good at it. And same thing as wiring, electrician. But I want my electrician to do it.
So what about the old adage, "Physician, heal thyself"? That's bullshit, then, right?
No, I think I'm lucky. I go to a doctor, but I just don't have anything wrong with me yet, or not too much.
What you got going on? Let's compare notes.
I've had 2 colonoscopies.
Okay, well,
Lucky.
you're supposed to have one at 50 and one at 60.
so
I had one.
those.
I took that to his
good,
last
okay.
colonoscopy.
I have some chronic sinus issues, and I'm going deaf. But besides that, I mean, just years in helicopters. I have high frequency hearing loss, and
I
I'm
have the low.
I'm
Problem
about
with the low.
2 years away from hearing aids. So no problem.
Optional.
And
though.
I
Don't-
had perfect vision until I was 50. Absolute perfect vision.
Yeah.
And now I wear glasses.
So no bad cholesterol.
No, do good.
No prostate issues.
Prostate issue. No.
Yeah. Look at that. Look at that.
You said that, now I gotta pee.
No, I've been lucky. Part of it I think is just good genetics, just the luck of the draw.
Right.
And then
I feel the same way.
I try to stay fairly active. I smoke 1 or 2 cigars a week.
I don't know if it's the fact that you're a doctor, but I actually lit up a cigarette and I thought to myself, I'm smoking a cigarette in front of a doctor.
Yeah.
Which, back in the day when my mom worked for Dr.
Oh, they
Dreyer
smoke.
back in Steubenville, Ohio, there were ashtrays in the waiting room.
Oh, I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
volunteering in the emergency department back in Steubenville, and the doctors be smoking at the desk there, and the nurses and everyone. You put them out before you went in the patient room. But yeah, it was very common. There were ashtrays in ambulances. I mean, in hospitals, it was a very common
All
thing.
right, let me. I'm going to say something really, really stupid
Okay.
in front of a doctor.
Okay.
Okay. And then if you can explain
Okay.
away my stupid rationale, I'll consider that a wonderful consultation with a physician. All right. I smoke.
Right.
I smoke. I've been smoking. I think the first cigarettes were in high school
Yep.
when we used to, sneak away and go hide. And remember the cave? The cave. Remember the cave? We'd go to the
Yeah.
cave where Bill Knoll had the Playboys, and the cave was smoke there. And I smoked with Ron Parisi.
Me and Ronnie Parisi used to smoke when we were 7 years old.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Yeah, we did. So
And then I-
Luigi cigarettes, old gold.
And then I smoked in college,
Yep.
and but just socially, and it wasn't until I got into stand up where I started to smoke, actively and addictively, and since then, and I'm 60 and I still smoke. But here's the thing: people say you should quit smoking, and I've tried. I've tried cold turkey. I've tried the patch. I've tried acupuncture. I've tried hypnosis. I've tried all those things. None of them work.
Yep.
But now, as I've gotten older, especially in my 50s, I got to that point in life where people would stop smoking and start paying attention to their health, right? I quit smoking, and then 6 months later, they would drop dead of a heart attack or a stroke, or 9 months later, like he quit smoking and he's got cancer,
Yeah.
but the one unifying thread and all of it was they quit smoking. And it's almost like in my mind, so this is how my mind where my mind works. Like, I know that there's bad shit.
Yeah.
I mean, these are like just tobacco and water, so they don't have all the other crap that's in the cigarettes. Okay, like I think this is a healthier cigarette, which is stupid.
like gas station
but in
some
my
shit,
mind, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, here's what happened. Well, the lungs had a bunch of shit in there, and not good. But once they quit smoking, all that stuff went away, and like disease went, it's open! Let's get them! And boom, in they go. And that's how my mind works. That's how my mind has worked when I hear about these people having heart attacks and strokes and then getting cancer. So there's a part of me, as irrational as it may be, that's afraid to I'm just going to stay the course. I drink, I smoke, and knock wood, so far, in really good health. No cholesterol problems, no blood pressure problems, no sugar problems. The only thing I have with me that's wrong is I have an extremely large prostate, but not a cancerous one because I had the SNPs. I had all those done, and they go, "You're
Biopsies,
fine."
yep.
And in my last physical, my PSA number was back in normal range. So explain my irrational thought
There have
process.
actually been some studies done, and they were through the VA system where they looked at exactly that. Older people, say older than 60, quitting smoking and dying. And so, what was the relationship statistically and otherwise?
So I'm not so crazy. Are you
So
telling me
there
I'm
are
not
some
so crazy?
studies, yeah. But they found out that the reason that a lot of these people were quitting smoking was that they were getting ill. It wasn't just, I'm feeling fine, and all of a sudden, I need to quit smoking. No, it's more like they
would get COPD.
COPD, or they get a diagnosis of cancer. And, because you can live with lung cancer for a long time, depending on when they catch it and what type. And so they'll get that diagnosis. And so by virtue of having this disease process, then them quitting smoking has nothing to do with their eventual death. But you're always better off quitting smoking. Absolutely.
Well, you're a doctor.
Yeah,
That's
always,
what you're going to say that.
Yeah. No, there's just no.
Seriously though.
Yeah, there's just no.
Well, I'm sorry. Did you wink? No.
Nah, there's no. Yeah,
You're better off not smoking. Wink, wink. Smoking
Said
when
I
we
do
got
one
'em.
or two cigars, a week, and that's probably not great. But
Yeah. Oh well, no, that's not gonna. That's gonna hurt
Yeah,
you.
but-
That's not gonna hurt you.
But no, there are some studies out there, and so that does
So I'm
happen.
not completely
Oh,
nuts
no.
in that thought process.
No, but there's a lot of people, they quit smoking, but why do they quit smoking? It's not like I'm feeling great, I want to take care of myself. It's no, they're feeling lousy, they've got a diagnosis of COPD, cancer, heart disease, or something.
And in some
It gives
cases,
them-
in some cases, I think though, I think the mortality comes knocking on the door,
Yeah.
where you realize that you've lived more than half of your life. If you look at the life expectancy and you go, maybe I should quit smoking. Maybe that'll add a few extra years.
And then there's a lot of people that do. They quit smoking.
And those people
they got to wake
die.
up. I had a colleague who had his first heart attack. It was interesting. Frank was from a family he had 5 brothers, an Irish family. No male on his father's side within recent history lived past 50 years old. Yeah, so horrible family history. So not only just the smoking and the lifestyle, which was part of it, and he had his first heart attack probably at 50, and then decided that's it. He had young children and decided, I want to be there for me, had reasons, and it totally quit smoking, and he's done well.
Good.
So he's the longest
Good.
lived of his family.
God bless him.
Yeah.
And I'm coming up on. I need to schedule colonoscopy number 2. I had the first one at 50, and you're probably up.
I've had 2.
You've had 2. Who took you to your second one?
My wife.
Are they doing those now? Do you have a family history?
No, what happened was on my first one, they found 1 polyp.
Yeah.
They said you have to only 5 years.
Wow.
So then I had it, and now this past one they didn't find anything.
Yeah.
So
Clean as a whistle.
There is a
He
test.
should be clean as a whistle. The man goes to the bathroom.
That's a podcast.
That's a podcast. I'm not. I don't mean to be gross or anything,
Yeah.
but he has a BM on average 6 times a day. 6 times a day. A day.
He's not denying
That's
it.
not normal.
Yeah.
That's not a colon. That's like a shit faucet. It's not normal.
Open enough about me.
It's called, okay. But they actually have now so there are tests they can do without doing colonoscopies.
Yes,
Basically,
the little cartoon guy with
Well-
the box.
well,
shit on the box, send it in the mail.
Yeah, exactly. Can you imagine the people, the UPS driver, he knows what he's delivering. Buckets of shit. But no, it's actually very accurate. It looks for cancerous DNA in the stool specimen. It's actually very, very accurate.
So
for
are you
certain-
saying, as a doctor and a
Right.
medical professional, are you suggesting that I do the...
Well, ask your
put the
doctor
shit in
about
the
it.
bo-
I don't know your
put-
exact history.
Put the shit in the box and
Yeah,
send it in the
yeah.
mail as opposed to
That's
going
what
to
I
the
did for my
colonoscopy?
last one,
Oh.
and it's incredibly cheaper than the colonoscopy, so the insurance companies love it.
Right.
But
UPS not so much.
yeah, UPS got
UPS.
this leaky package. Yeah, no, they double
gross.
seal everything, and but no, ask your doctor about it if it's a possibility. Certain things, there's certain contraindications to it, but if you're uncomplicated.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm trying to think what other medical advice I can squeeze out of him
Yeah.
just by accident without him saying, like, no, you should go see your doctor. Give me the standard family response.
Post nasal drip. I mean, come on. What's the, you can't get rid
I
of
have a
that
summer
shit.
cold. I'm
For
congested.
life.
I got
Yeah,
chronic
so
sinus.
obviously I need opioids.
Yes, that's the question. Did you bring your prescription pad?
Yes. No such thing anymore. Everything's on computer now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, the idea of handwriting a prescription has basically gone away over
don't tell me
5
that.
years ago. So it's all computer, and a lot of it is you're never actually handed a prescription. It's transmitted directly to the pharmacy. So yeah, so you can't forge prescriptions anymore. It makes it hard unless you got a computer hacker or something.
Well,
The good old days.
Yeah, change the 100. Yeah.
Yeah, when you could steal a doctor's prescription pad and
Yep.
forge a signature.
Or you can print your own. I've
Wah,
had patients.
wah.
you can print your own.
Yeah.
I'm trying to respect my producer's mutual consideration for keeping this at an hour. So I know there's a lot more we could talk about, and maybe we can down the line. But I know that you are on the social medias as well. You're on Twitter. So if people want to follow you on Twitter.
If you're interested, I am at FLTDOC1, Flight Doc 1.
Flight Doc 1.
And yeah, it's really, I said, I use it primarily for medical stuff, but there is some entertaining stuff
No,
there.
you put
that's
some
non-medical
fun stuff
Oh,
on
you
that.
follow.
Yeah, I follow.
Yeah.
And we're also going to seek out Untold Stories of the ER.
Right.
And put that one episode up where
Right.
you grab the nutsack of the prison inmate.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's nice.
yeah, hey, you know what? He kept a bad man in jail.
Yeah.
Because he had a very creative way of going about it. Man, more power to you. Our guest has been Dr. Michael Abernethy.
Abernethy.
Yeah, Abernethy. Yeah. Engineer. Doctor. Bon vivant.
Bon vivant.
Jack of many trades. Master of them all, apparently.
Yeah.
God, I hate you. No, I don't. I'm so happy about this, man.
Yeah.
This is so good because Mike's been a fan of the podcast since we started.
Oh, absolutely.
And the fact that we have a chance to actually be here and sitting with you is very, very cool. So we got his info. Before we split, Hansberry, a quick mention of some other things that we need to get to real quick.
Well, we've talked about Twitter. We're on Facebook, and keep posted on Facebook because, like we said, we've got a lot of stuff coming up. The Premise, the Columbus Podcast Awards, and that's kind of where we push all that info.
Premise
out.
August 20th. Columbus Podcast Awards August 25th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Subscribe to us on iTunes and on YouTube. But word of mouth, just tell your friends, or whiskey loving buddies or people who think just would get a kick out of it. And review us because when you do that, it helps spread the love. And I have a 5-star review that I'd be happy to share.
Last week, most of our reviews are 4 to 5 stars, just to keep us humble. He shared a 1-star review with us last week. Have we heard from him,
No,
by the way?
not
No?
since then.
Because I actually made a plea to the 1-star guy to hey,
thanks.
come back.
Give us a second shot. This is from Coretta at 110. Tune into this podcast. Every episode I learn something about life. I laugh. I'm moved. I definitely get educated about some fine bourbon and whiskey. Dino, has been a staple radio comedian for years, but wow, you have definitely opened up your repertoire and put yourself on a whole new level. Keep doing it, Dino and Greg. That's me.
And it's you, Hansberry.
You're doing great. And John, she meant to put you probably too. That's
With
it. But
the-
thank you, Coretta at 110.
Whitney joined us here recently in the last. Has it been almost 9 months now?
It's been over a year.
Over a year? Wow, where's the time go?
I have no
Down a
idea.
bottle.
But John Whitney has contributed the whole YouTube faction to this
huge.
podcast, and it's been huge. And yes, did she actually say Greg?
Yeah, and parentheses and
She
Greg.
didn't say Hansberry. I like Hansberry. It's
regal. I like that.
You sound like
sort of a manservant.
yeah. That's what I like about it. It sounds very manservant like Hansberry.
Hansberry.
Hansberry. You can say it in so many different
Yes,
ways.
sir.
Yeah. Or, Hansberry. You can say it so many different ways.
Your Crocs again, sir?
Whiskey Business is a Never the Luck production produced by Hansberry, Greg, and of course the amazing John Whitney. There's the thumbs up, who does such an amazing job with our YouTube channel. So if you're watching this, you can thank John Whitney. Also the guest bottle, for those of you who can find it, Calumet Farms Single Rack Black Kentucky Bourbon Whiskey, 12 years old. If you can find it for the original retail price of $69.99, get it, because it's selling for a lot more than that these days. But very, very enjoyable. All the opinions shared here on Whiskey Business start as mine and are shared with my not so reluctant guests. Mike Abernethy, thank you so much, brother. We're going to hang out for a while longer after this. He's actually staying over. We're doing a sleepover.
Yeah.
Here at Whiskey Business. You guys can stay if you want. Yeah, I know the kids are out of town, right?
Sure, what the hell?
Yeah,
Let's
why
do
not?
it.
All right.
To each other's hair.
We'll make prank phone
We'll
calls.
make prank phone calls. Somebody get me a tube and a faucet so I can put the thing up Abernethy and see if we can do it for old time's sake. All right? Yeah, that would be the best. Doing his hair. Remember that time?
I miss these talks.
Okay. Next week on the podcast, comedian Mike Larson will be joining us as well.
It's a big week.
And it's a big week because we'll be approaching. It's the 100th bottle on Whiskey Business. Not this one. Next week. You were 99. You were 99 bottles
a week
of
early.
booze on the wall. 99 bottles
right.
of booze. You missed the big one. Sorry, Mike. 99 bottles of booze on the wall. All right. Until the next bottle. See ya.
All right.
Yeah, very good.